Magia Record has a lot of weird side characters due to the nature of the size of the game's roster. I mean this in the nicest way possible, of course. I don't think the characters are necessarily weird, most of the time anyway, but definitely some get more focused than others, and some are just, well, not very well thought out for a variety of reasons. However, anomalous as it might seem, it's actually one of these oddballs who have found a spot as one of my favorite characters, and it's not like she has a particularly deep story or anything like that. It's just very well put together and features a positive spin on the usual narrative we've come to expect from the type of story that she has. Of course, you know I'm talking about a girl named Natsuki Utsuho, so what the hell's her deal, right? Why do I care about this one so much? Well, let me introduce you to her and her story because I really like this character and I think she needs some more attention. This week long series has been a great way to talk about things in this franchise that I wouldn't easily be able to slot into regular videos, and one about Natsuki is definitely something to fit that bill. This video is probably going to be more of a recap than anything super profound, but I'll still offer some meaningful commentary about her, don't worry. Let's get into this. First off, I want to point out that the way Magia Record presents Natsuki's story is opposite to how I will be presenting it. I'll recap her story first and explain what the difference actually is and why I think it could be out of order in Magia Record after the fact. Anyway, just who is Natsuki Utsuho? As a young girl, Natsuki was never drawn to the traditionally feminine activities and instead gravitated towards baseball as a result of seeing her brother practicing and playing catch with her father. Natsuki in the present day, however, is a cheerleader. The reason for this is because her school simply doesn't allow girls to play Little League Baseball, a fact that made her eventually gravitate towards playing sandlot baseball when her attempts to join her brother's team were turned down. Natsuki plays with the Sandlot team for a bit but doesn't feel satisfied. She doesn't understand why this is until her brother brings her to watch his team play in the Little League. At first, there's a painful disconnect for Natsuki because she feels left out watching the team she wanted to play with perform without her. But as she's watching, she realizes a profound sense of purpose in cheering them on. From there, Natsuki realized that what truly made her happy was the ability to support the people close to her, something that she obviously couldn't get from playing sandlot baseball. She continued to then support her brother's team all the way up until a championship game they were set to play, but quite literally the day of the game, her brother collapsed after suddenly contracting a fever. But hey, this shouldn't be too big of a deal, right? We're talking about a baseball team good enough to get far enough for a championship match. They should at least have a substitute player, right? Wrong. Of course they don't. At least not one they're willing to use due to just how good Natsuki's brother is. What a coincidence, am I right? Honestly, the way some of these scenarios for wishes happen, you'd almost think someone is orchestrating things to turn out this way. Huh, that could make a good future theory video. Anyway, back to Natsuki. Obviously worrying about her brother's team, she is visited by Kyubey and she makes a contract without hesitation and wishes for her brother to get better. In Magia Exedra, we learn that the wording involved her mentioning that if he didn't get well, it would be his team's last chance to play together. I think this wording is very relevant to how Natsuki acts as a magical girl. As it turns out, regardless of her wish, the team did end up losing by 1 point in the end, but this is ultimately a factor that does not deter Natsuki, and she is still glad she became a magical girl even all this time later. And that's the gist of her origin story. So, I said before that this is presented differently to how the magical girl side story is shown to us in Magia Record. There, we learn about Natsuki's wish for the first time, and then we learn that she tried to join the Little League team. This implies her wish might have come before her attempts to join. Personally, I think this is out of order. Think of the order of events from both angles. If Magia Record's presented timeline is correct, we have Natsuki having her big, defining moment of purpose coming after she is a magical girl. But her magical girl power is this super enhanced ability to inspire motivation in others. She is a cheerleader after all. If her attempts to join a team and then discover she wants to be a cheerleader come after her wish, it makes no sense as to why her magical girl form already has the power associated with her turn of motivation. If we instead look at the order of events in the way that I present it, the timeline naturally tells a cohesive story. Natsuki subconsciously always wanted to do something that would put her close to her friends and family, so she tries becoming a Little League player, but over time learns she can support them by being a cheerleader. This lesson would inform how her magical core form works, plus her transformation and wish being related to the support of the most important person in her life acts as a natural endpoint to her narrative journey to becoming a magical girl. But okay, plenty of characters have a similar story. What makes Natsuki stand out? Well, though her upbeat demeanor and personality would not lend itself to this based on others like her, Natsuki is a veteran magical girl. Compare her to someone like Mami, Kyoko, or Homura, and the difference is night and day. She manages to remain very positive in a way that's almost antithetical to what we've come to expect from the veteran archetype. It's not like she's all sunshine and rainbows, of course, but there's something about her troubles that's just so human. In the present day, Natsuki is friends with a girl named Akira Shinobu. Natsuki finds herself often cheering on other magical girls and assisting them, and in this specific instance, it's no different. She helps Kaide to feel strong enough to beat a witch she and Akira are having troubles with. They beat it, and the pair are eventually told the story that I recapped by Natsuki herself, though we also learn just how far Natsuki's generosity and support extends as we learn she's not just a cheerleader but the manager of her brother's team. An interesting thing happens when Akira points out that the third year students are going to graduate soon. Natsuki panics at this thought. Akira finds Natsuki a day later, deep in thought and notably nowhere near as cheerful as she normally is. Natsuki reveals that she's scared of change. It wasn't just Akira mentioning graduation, it was actually something that she's been noticing but ignoring for a while. How her friends have less time for sports and are more worried about exams and cram school. She's terrified at the thought of not being around those people anymore, seeing them move on while she stays behind. It's a very human struggle, and one that's universally understood. In some way, all of us fear change. I can relate heavily to parts of this. There are friends, people I had crushes on, people I imagined would always be around who just aren't anymore. Change is a seemingly insurmountable wall to climb, but we know it's scalable. It has to be. We can't progress if we don't get over that wall, and it's a sentiment which Akira helps Natsuki to understand too. Akira asks Natsuki what she might imagine herself to be like as a mother, and the talk soon naturally turns into them imagining the future. A future where everyone meets again when they're all grown up. I like this character and her story because of what it represents and what it touches on. Madoka Magica has a lot of things we can point to as being the main threat or the big bad, but the one I always think about as being the true threat to the girls is their inability to grow up and progress. Rebellion's ending song, Your Silver Garden, features a line about this that has always stuck with me. It translates to the door to adulthood is firmly locked. I mean, what an evocative line. And it's very true. The Holy Quintet have failed to have scenarios where they can actually grow up. The closest is glimpses into a future where Mami became an idol or even got all the way to adulthood. But nothing tangible has ever happened that has a lasting impact. Fear of change has always brought them back to zero. I truly believe that if the members of the Holy Quintet are to ever get a happy ending, it will come by way of them opening that door to adulthood and growing up, just as Natsuki and Akira vow to do. But that's not the only part of a goal in this universe that's worth exploring, and I do quite like the concept of her witch, so let's take a look at that before we wrap up the video. Natsuki's witch, or doppel, depending on where it comes out, is called Aldamu. It's a really fascinating creature, actually, and there's obviously some differences between the versions, so I want to focus on them separately. Though, first of all, is the name. Aldamu refers to a type of ash tree native to Japan and Russia, the Fraxinus lanuginosa. The wood of this tree is strong and ideally suited for being bent without breaking, making it preferred in the creation of things like baseball bats. That is an obvious link, but I would also take the idea of the wood being flexible but strong enough to not break as a neat little nod to what Natsuki's character is. She's a flexible character in the metaphorical sense, as she does a number of different activities and yet never lets any of them break her. The doppel version of Aldamo depicts it as a megaphone used by Natsuki, which makes a lot of sense. It is perfectly in line with her powers and role as a cheerleader. Something I think is interesting too is how Natsuki is connected to it. There are chords which make a loop that she stands inside of, but Natsuki herself is not actually tied to the doppel. I take this as a bit of a metaphor for how Natsuki isn't necessarily tied down to the roles she's assigned herself, but finds herself attached to them by her own choosing. The witch form of Aldamo has the addition of legs on the underside of the megaphone body, showing us a metaphor for Natsuki's life as a whole. The witch still has legs, a means to move around, but the rest of what made Natsuki who she is has been overtaken by the megaphone because Natsuki has a tendency to reduce herself into the one role she thinks she needs to be. Her witch form is a perfect reflection of how Natsuki struggles with change. This might seem like an odd topic to throw in here, but that is the point of the week of Madoka Magica project. Tomorrow is the final episode, and just like Natsuki, I am nervous about the end, about change, and about what comes after it's said and done. But also, like her, I'm ready to embrace the change that Walpurgisnacht Rising will give us. I'll see you all tomorrow for our last time together in this series.